a very specific view of collaboration, and we see it as working together to produce something new and different. So it's not just making some changes at the peripheries or the edges, it's actually changing the way that you work together or changing the sorts of outcomes that you're looking to achieve. Because it is different, collaboration operates under a very different set of logic. So it's very much based on relationships. Relationships are essential, and not just any type of relationships, but relationships that are very dense. You realise that you're very interdependent with your colleagues, that without them you can't produce what you need to produce, and certainly that the things that come out of it aren't going to be the new and innovations that you're looking to achieve. We've already said before that relationships are key, and those relationships are things like trust, reciprocity, mutuality, sharing of information, sharing of knowledge, but also sharing of expertise. There is a great lure for collaboration. Collaboration seems to be the queen. Everybody wants to be collaborators, and one of the things that we will talk about today is that you don't have to be a collaborator for absolutely everything that you do. You don't really have often the time, the resources, and sometimes it's just not what you really need to do. So one of the first things with that in mind is to be really clear about, well, what is it that you want to do? What are your goals and options? So Michael, from your perspective, when do you think that when would you involve yourself in a collaboration?
Well, often when I've got a project and I need a specific set of skills or a specific set of data or access to a set of data that I can't get on my own through my own ability or my own background or skills. For example, with a lot of projects, you'll need people with different skills that you can't do yourself. There's no real point becoming an expert in, say, every different type of undertaking statistical analysis, for example. You might have a great idea for a project, but the appropriate way of going about that project might be to use a particular type of statistical analysis that I simply don't have and don't have the time to invest in. So in that case, you would be looking for someone who does have that particular skill set and an interest in working on the broader topic area, for example.
So for you, it's not just working with somebody who's got a complementary set of skills, but actually an extended set of skills. Yeah.
And I think in most projects that you'll undertake, and I think we're talking today about working together with other academics as well as with industry partners, but certainly within an academic space, then yes, you don't want two experts on structural equation modelling in the same team. That's not really, it's redundancy that you don't really need. But you might want someone who has a different ability to analyse something, or in some cases you might be looking for someone who has a more contextual background, who understands the industry more than you do. And so in those cases I'd be looking to collaborate with someone who can provide something that I don't have, but hopefully also I can bring something that that person doesn't have to that particular project. Maybe it's me who has the interest or the background in a particular industry, and they might want to undertake some research in that industry, but they don't understand the context. On the other hand, I need someone who can do the research in a particular way that I can't do myself. So you're looking for complementary.
You're creating something new.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you know that? How do you know when it's the right thing to do for a collaboration? So.
Well, often I've found you have to go through a teething period, as it were, and you know, as you're probably going to talk about, not all collaborations work, and you need to know when it's time to walk away, as Kenny Rogers once sang in a song about gambling. You've got to know when to walk away and know when to run. And sometimes what you really want to do is do some small pilot type exercise to see whether you can actually work together, or is that just too much pain, because you have such different ways of working together. So in many cases, I definitely, or most cases, recommend undertaking some kind of small pilot exercise. Perhaps if in an academic concept, it might be writing a conceptual paper together to explore the problem space, not actually doing the research or collecting the data, but working out what is that problem space and what is the literature and what is it saying and what do we think it could concentrate on more in the future.
So you're saying, in effect, that even though you're working together to produce something that everybody is going to gain from, at the same time you have to be clear about what value you are going to get out of it as well. So
I think people have different roles within a collaboration as well, and sometimes that role might simply be the person who is best at telling the story and communicate the outcomes.
One of the things that I've learned over many years and doing this is that you actually have to know the rules of the game, the terms of engagement, and actually spend some time setting those terms of engagement up. So Dave, even though you've got a long career in project management, this research collaboration as a PhD candidate, how has that experience been for you, understanding the rules of the game, understanding how that works in your particular school and faculty, and how have you experienced setting these terms of engagement?
I think if there's one lesson I've learned over the last couple of years, it's the need for flexibility. I think coming from the business background that I have, I had anticipated that A would lead to B and lead to C and lead to D, and the reality is that it's a far more cyclical and a far looser experience than what I would have expected to experience. So I think it's really important that when you come into a research collaboration space, that you do establish the rules of the game. You know who's leading, you know where the expertise lies within the different people, but you also don't have a fixed mindset about how it should operate. And as you learn to work with other people, you learn their strengths, their foibles, you learn your own strengths and foibles. And it's an emerging experience and an emerging skill set, if you like, I think, that you need to be aware of, and you need to be flexible in learning all of that.
Okay, and the other part to it, I think, is to understand where working in collaboration and research collaboration sits within your university and your faculty. Is it something that's supported and facilitated, or is it something that's expected but it should just happen by magic? So some discussion about that and some understanding about the context in which you work. I think just to conclude on that particular slide is that you really have to know yourself and what you've got to offer and how that can be useful to a collaborative process. And as Michael said, sometimes you are quite within your rights to say no. It doesn't quite fit me right at this moment.
Just to reflect a bit more on that point as well, is that there's often a tendency for people to collaborate or to try to collaborate with people who are more or less the same as they are.
Yes.
Oh, we're both interested in the same industry, therefore we should work together. But sometimes there's a perspective from outside bringing a different perspective that is important to the work you're wanting to do. Perhaps you want to work with someone who understands feminist theory, for example, to look at a particular problem.
That said, though, I think you can still have people who are sort of in the same area of you but have a slightly different take on it in the way that they write or the way that they think. So I agree that when you want to have something, make a big change, then it's really good to have those different perspectives. But I research and write a lot with people from the same sector, but they have a different take. So I work with a lot with practitioners, so their view of what I think is different. So each time we work together, I'm getting a better outcome because I'm getting their knowledge applied to it. And
you're also, if you're working with people in government, you're getting an up-to-date understanding of what's going on within government. You might have worked in government, but things change.
That's right.
And the context in which you're operating in might be quite different to what the real operating context is. And I think that can add an edge to what you're doing in terms of research.
So we decided that we're going to be collaborators. We're going to be research collaborators. So what's the next step? Is how to find friends and how to find people who are going to be good collaborators. Michael, in the past when you've been involved in all these projects, how do you go about finding somebody to work with?
Well, the problem with a lot of collaboration is it's mandated, and you are told to work with certain people. For example, just to reflect on my experience with cooperative research centres, there'll be a number of universities within that research centre, and often one university will be told to work with another university on a particular project. So in a lot of cases, no, you don't have a lot of choice in those kinds of situations. So you might be forced to work with someone who perhaps you don't get along with, or perhaps you've got completely different ideological perspectives or approaches to a research topic, or perhaps you come up with someone who just is pretty lazy and doesn't do the work, which I think we've all been in collaborations where we have ended up taking on more than we expected to bite off.
Right.
But you've got to make sure in those situations that you should be calling out those actions and probably not working with those people.
And maybe that's part of the setting of those terms of engagement up front, is this is how we work together and this is what we can expect from each other.
Yeah.
So what about the supervision relationship? Is that for early career researchers and new researchers, I guess one of the easiest way to find their partners, their collaborators, is through an existing relationship?
Yeah, well, it's probably the first academic collaboration you'll have is co-authoring an article with your supervisory team.
But I think from my experience, it's not just your supervisory team, but it's also your fellow doctoral candidates who are also going through a similar journey, and they may have distinct views on things. I've experienced this with someone who's looking at collaboration but from a different perspective, and so we actually decided to get together and present a paper at a conference. And so not only the supervisors but the people that are in your own space, everybody's trying to get a leg up in terms of research collaboration, and look to the people that are closest to you, because it may be that there's somebody sitting there right in front of you that can help you to collaborate on a paper. And even if it's just an experience where you learn what collaboration is like, it's important to get your toe into the water, to try it out, and to learn things in the process.
I think that's an interesting point you make, because I think collaboration isn't just about working with people that you know and like. It's also, I think, about having a relationship that you can quickly leverage. So knowing people and knowing that you can work with them and that you can trust them to be good partners is an important part of it. But I think also the fact that you've got supervisors who can link you through to other people is also another advantage of working through those existing relationships and the networks that are there. The other thing, though, and I think this is what Michael was pointing to before, is that you don't always have to collaborate with people who are like you and who you like. It's oftentimes more relevant and useful to collaborate with somebody who's got other set of resources or another set of skill bases.
And you can learn as well from those people.
Yeah. So
or at least understand how those people work. You might not be becoming an expert in the particular skill set that they have, but you understand, if you want to collaborate with someone with a similar skill set in the future, how they go about doing things.
Yep, exactly.
So I think the message we're making here is that in the first instance, the people that you work with closely, your supervision team, as well as your colleagues and peers, is a really good first point of contact for finding research collaboration.